Part 1: The First Sightings. Every legend has an origin. With Smile Dog, the story begins in the late 1990s, a time when the internet was still raw, half-built, and dangerous in ways people didn't yet understand. Back then, every click was a gamble. Pop-ups exploded across the screen, viruses hid in every download, and chain emails promised everything from good luck to death if you didn't forward them. People learned quickly that the web wasn't a playground. It was a labyrinth, and somewhere in that labyrinth the file appeared. It was simple enough: an email with no subject line, no sender name, and one attachment: smile.jpg. Most people deleted it without opening. The smarter ones knew that attachments from strangers were a recipe for infection. But curiosity is the internet's oldest curse. Someone always clicks. And those who did, those who saw the image, never seemed the same afterward. The image, the descriptions varied, but the core was always the same: a photograph of a dog. Usually described as a Siberian husky, sometimes a Malamute, sitting in a dimly lit room. The dog's body looked normal at first glance. Its posture was stiff, but not unnatural. Its fur was thick, though shadowy in the low light. But its face was wrong. The lips stretched too far back, curling unnaturally, exposing teeth that weren't quite canine. Too many of them, straight, flat, and human-like, set into a grin that seemed carved into flesh rather than grown. The eyes reflected light the way a predator's eyes do: red, glassy, unblinking. Some described the background as a living room, with shadows stretching too long. Others swore the backdrop was something more abstract, like a void that bent inward the longer you looked. But everyone agreed on one thing: once you saw the grin, you couldn't unsee it. People who opened the file reported seeing flashes of it in their dreams. They'd close their eyes at night and wake in a cold sweat, convinced the dog had been watching them from the corner of their room. They saw its teeth in reflections, in the static of old televisions, even in their own mirror when they brushed their teeth. It wasn't just an image. It was an infection. Spread the word. Early witnesses claimed the image came with no text, just the attachment. But others swore that, if you stared long enough, the picture whispered to you. Not out loud, not through speakers, straight into your head. The phrase repeated over and over: spread the word. At first, people assumed this was just internet folklore, a dramatization. After all, chain letters had existed for decades before email. Send this to 10 people or you'll die was nothing new. The idea of a cursed attachment was simply the digital evolution of the same gimmick. But unlike the jokey chains promising good luck or haunted fortune, this one didn't feel like a prank. The words weren't funny. They weren't optional. The more you thought about them, the more they rooted in your mind. Spread the word. Mary E. The earliest recorded victim was a woman known only as Mary E. Her story surfaced on a Usenet board in the early 2000s, posted by someone claiming to be a journalist who had interviewed her. According to the account, Mary E. had once been an enthusiastic web user. She joined forums, discussed technology, and even beta-tested early software. But one night, she received the infamous attachment. She opened it. Her life unraveled almost immediately. She became plagued by night terrors, dreams filled with the grinning dog, its teeth flashing in the dark, its voice echoing, "Spread the word." She claimed the dreams felt more real than her waking life. She'd wake up screaming, clawing at her face as though the smile had latched onto her skin. Over time, her paranoia grew. She stopped leaving the house, stopped talking to friends, refused to answer the phone. The journalist's account described meeting her once, in her home, years after the initial exposure. She looked frail, trembling constantly. Her windows were covered in aluminum foil, her walls plastered with scribbled notes about the dog and the smile. She told him flatly that the image wanted to be seen, that every victim became its messenger, that ignoring it didn't work. The only relief came when you shared it with someone else, when you spread the word. The journalist noted that she laughed as she said this, a laugh that sounded more like sobbing. Days after the interview, Mary E. took her own life. The only item left beside her was a floppy disk labeled Smile.jpg. Early rumors. After Mary's story spread, so did the legend. People began claiming they'd seen the file on forums, in private chats, even hidden on early peer-to-peer networks. Some swore that hackers used it as a tool, embedding it in emails to infect machines. But the strangest reports weren't about computers at all. A handful of people claimed to have seen SmileDog offline. One man swore that he saw it framed in a pawn shop, staring out from behind the glass. Another said he saw the face on a roadside billboard, grinning down at him as he drove past. A third claimed to have found it tucked inside an old magazine, slipped between advertisements. None of these accounts could be proven, but they shared the same detail, the phrase, "Spread the word." The journalist's confession. Years later, the supposed journalist who had interviewed Mary E. returned to the story. He admitted that he'd been plagued ever since. Though he never claimed to have opened the disc, he said the nightmares began the night after the interview. He saw flashes of the dog's grin in his sleep, waking in cold sweats. He heard scratching at his door late at night, though nothing was ever there. Eventually, he began receiving emails himself. No subject, no sender, just the attachment. He never opened it. But the longer he resisted, the worse the dreams became. He wrote that, at times, he could hear the dog breathing beside his bed. He swore the whisper was louder now. Not just "spread the word," but something more. If you won't, they will. The infection theory. Internet historians later argued that SmileDog represented one of the earliest examples of digital folklore. A story that spread because it preyed on the fear of technology itself. But others believed there was something more literal happening. Some claimed the image was built with subliminal layers, visual noise that triggered panic, sleep paralysis, and hallucinations. A visual mimetic agent, they called it. Not supernatural, just weaponized psychology. Others leaned into the paranormal. They suggested that the file wasn't made so much as captured, that the dog, or whatever it was, really existed, that the photo wasn't a creation but a window that grinned back, a survivor's account. On a long-forgotten forum in 2005, a user named Harold P. wrote a post titled, "I saw it." He described opening an email he thought came from a coworker. Instead, it was Smile.jpg. He only looked at it for a second before closing the window, but the second was enough. That night, he dreamed of standing in a pitch-black hallway. At the far end, the dog waited, sitting, grinning. Every night the dream returned, the dog closer each time. By the third week, it was inches from his face, its teeth flashing in the dark, its breath hot against his skin. The dream never progressed beyond that, but Harold admitted he hadn't slept properly in months. He said he saw the dog's grin in every shadow, every reflective surface. He ended his post with a warning. Don't look for it. Don't even think about it. Because once you see it, you'll never stop seeing it. Closing of Part 1. By the mid-2000s, SmileDog had already cemented itself as one of the internet's most infamous legends. It wasn't just a cursed image. It was an infection, a story that spread the way a virus spreads, by preying on curiosity, fear, and the simple fact that nobody can resist opening a forbidden file. And as the years passed, the infection grew. Because SmileDog didn't just want to be seen. It wanted to be remembered. It wanted to live in your head, whispering, until you gave in and passed it along. And if you didn't, promise to find another way. Part 2, The Victims and the Spread. By the early 2000s, SmileDog was no longer just a whispered warning. It had become an infection moving across forums, message boards, and private inboxes. People weren't just talking about it. They were swearing it had ruined their lives. The forums. Before social media, people gathered in small digital enclaves. Paranormal boards, personal blogs, fringe tech forums. If you search through old archives, the scraps that survived the death of GeoCities and Angelfire, you can still find fragments of the discussions. A post on an abandoned forum dated 2002 reads, "The image is real. A friend sent it to me, I opened it, and I can't sleep. I don't mean nightmares. Actual fear of closing my eyes. Every time I blink, I see it. My vision stutters. It's waiting for me in the dark. Replies flooded in. Some mocking, some sympathetic, others begging for a copy of the file. That was the paradox of Smile Dog. Everyone said it ruined lives, but curiosity never slowed. People wanted to see it for themselves, like moths drawn to a flame. The warning only made the infection stronger. Early victims. One of the most well-known victims was a man referred to only as RK. His testimony circulated on paranormal blogs in 2003. RK was a computer repair technician. One day, a customer brought in a corrupted hard drive. While recovering files, he stumbled across a folder labeled Smile. Inside was a single .jpg file. He clicked it. RK described the same grin, the same bloodshot eyes, the same wrongness everyone else reported. But his account didn't stop there. He said that the moment he saw the image, his office felt colder. His monitor buzzed faintly, though it was a CRT screen that shouldn't have made noise. His dog, a real living pet, started barking wildly, refusing to go near the desk. That night, RK had the dream for the first time. The hallway, the dog waiting, the smile stretching wider each time. By the second week, he said the dog was whispering in the dream. His mouth didn't move, but he heard the words clearly. Spread the word. RK refused. Months later, his family found him dead in his office chair. The cause was ruled suicide, though the details were never publicized. His computer tower, when examined, was empty. The hard drive had been removed. Chain reaction. As stories like RK spread, so did Smile Dog's reputation. Users on message boards began claiming to receive unsolicited emails with the attachment. Sometimes it came from strangers, sometimes from hacked accounts of friends. Always the same subject line. Blank. Always the same file. Smile.jpg. Victims reported similar symptoms. Insomnia, hallucinations, paranoia that the dog was watching them, obsession with the phrase, spread the word. Some described hearing scratching at their doors late at night. Others swore they saw fleeting glimpses of the grin in real life. In car windows, on TV static, even reflected faintly in the surface of their own eyes when they looked in the mirror. Not everyone believed. Skeptics dismissed it as a mass hallucination, an early example of digital folklore. But the growing number of victim accounts kept the fire alive. The suicide board. In 2004, an anonymous board surfaced that claimed to be a safe space for those infected by Smile Dog. The posts were grim. People described their experiences in detail, always returning to the same nightmare. The endless hallway, the waiting grin. One user wrote, "He sits there every night. I don't know how he gets closer, but he does. One day he'll be right on top of me. I know what will happen when that day comes. I just don't want to wait for it." Another post simply read, "I'm tired of spreading the word." 2 days later, other users reported that Poster's account was marked inactive. Some claimed the board was taken down because too many users ended their lives after posting. Others said it was a hoax designed to dramatize the creepypasta. But archived fragments still exist, and they're unsettling in their consistency. The Whisper Network. While forums buzzed, the image kept appearing in stranger places. A woman in Canada reported receiving a burned CD from an unknown sender. Inside was only smile.jpg. A man in Germany swore he saw the image appear as a pop-up on his screen while browsing unrelated websites. The pop-up couldn't be closed. When he unplugged the monitor, the grin still burned in his vision. A college student in the US claimed his professor warned him never to research smile.jpg, saying, "It's not a story, it's a contagion." The warnings only deepened the fascination. The nature of the curse. By this point, a pattern had formed. Smile Dog didn't just want to be seen. It wanted to be shared. Victims reported that the only way to relieve the nightmares was to send the image to someone else. Coworker, a friend, a stranger online. For a while, it worked. The dreams would fade, the paranoia would ease. But the relief never lasted. The whispers always returned. Some claimed SmileDog punished those who refused to spread it. The longer you resisted, the worse the hallucinations grew. Scratching at the windows, the sound of panting at night, the reflection of the grin in darkened glass. One victim wrote, "You can't fight it. You either pass it on, or it eats you alive." Theories. By the mid-2000s, SmileDog had become infamous enough that theories flourished. Subliminal image theory. Some claimed the file was embedded with visual triggers, patterns that activated fear centers in the brain. Similar experiments had been done with flashing lights, which could trigger seizures in photosensitive viewers. Smile.jpg, they argued, was a digital weapon. Mimetic hazard. Others compared it to a cognitive virus. Just as a biological virus spreads through bodies, a mimetic virus spreads through minds. The grin infected memory, replicating itself through thought until the victim passed it on. Paranormal window. A more supernatural theory suggested the photo wasn't man-made at all, that it was a real snapshot of something, a demon, an entity, captured in a vulnerable moment. The reason it spread wasn't because of coding or psychology, but because the thing in the photo wanted to be seen. The journalist returns. Remember the journalist who had interviewed Mary E? He resurfaced in another account years later, confessing that the image had never left him. He still hadn't opened the floppy disk Mary left behind. But the whispers grew louder. In his later writing, he described a dream where Mary herself appeared. She was pale, trembling, her eyes bloodshot. Behind her, in the darkness, the dog waited. Mary whispered to him, "Spread the word." When he woke, his phone buzzed. An email.
No sender.
No subject. Attachment. Smile.jpg. The decline. By the late 2000s, SmileDog's reputation began to change. It was mocked on forums, turned into a meme, even photoshopped into ridiculous edits. The legend seemed to lose its power as it entered parody. But those who had seen the real image swore the copies weren't accurate. The original was different, sharper, hungrier, alive. One user wrote in 2009, "The edits are jokes, but the real file, I've seen it, is not just an image. It's waiting. Every time I close my eyes, I know it's still there." Closing of Part 2. By now, the legend of SmileDog had left its mark. Dozens of victims, alleged suicides, and countless sleepless nights. An image that spread like a plague, demanding to be shared, whispering in dreams until its curse passed along. The skeptics laughed, but the survivors didn't, because the grinning dog didn't care if you believed. It only cared that you saw, and once you did, you were never truly alone again. Part 3, The Legacy. Legends usually fade. Most creepypastas collapse under their own weight. Too many retellings, too many edits, too much parody. But SmileDog never really disappeared. Even now, decades after the first stories, the grin still surfaces.
Même hors menace?
By the 2010s, SmileDog had become a staple of creepypasta culture. It appeared in compilations, YouTube readings, even ironic t-shirts. The once feared Smile.jpg turned into a punchline for internet horror. But beneath the parody, whispers persisted. Some users swore that certain versions of the file weren't the same as the harmless edits. That there was still an original, grainier, hungrier, alive in a way the recreations could never match. One Redditor wrote, "I've seen the memes. I've seen the jokes. None of them matter. The real picture isn't online. It travels. It finds you. And once it does, you'll know. You can't confuse it with a Photoshop. Because the moment you look into the eyes, it looks back." Modern sightings. Even in the age of TikTok and Discord, SmileDog adapts. TikTok glitches. Clips circulate where, for a split second, SmileDog's face flashes between frames. The uploaders often claim they didn't insert it. Discord bots. In private servers, bots sometimes appear and flood channels with attachments labeled Smile.jpg. When opened, most are harmless memes. But every so often, someone swears theirs was different. Dark web rumors. Alleged original files are traded in hidden forums, often with warnings not to open them. Most are fakes, but believers insist at least one version is real. Why it refuses to die. Unlike other creepypastas, Smile Dog isn't just a story. It's an idea, a warning. Adare. It thrives on curiosity. The same instinct that made people click attachments in 1999 makes them Google smile.jpg today. Even knowing the risks, even laughing at the absurdity, people can't resist. And every time someone goes looking, the legend grows stronger. Because Smile Dog doesn't need to be real to spread. It only needs to be remembered. Closing of Part 3. Today, Smile Dog is both a relic and a phantom. A story that refuses to die. A grin that refuses to fade. And whether you believe in the curse or not, you can't deny its power. Because now you're thinking about it. Now you've pictured the grin. And maybe tonight, when you close your eyes, you'll dream of a hallway. And at the far end, it'll be waiting,